Hello YouTube, how's it going? This is the crossover and I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be doing another one of my scouting reports for the 2022 NBA draft. And in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at Baylor's Jeremy Sochan. So without any further delay, let's get straight into the video. Moving on to some stats regarding Jeremy Sochan, he is 18 years old, stands at about 6 feet 9 inches, weighs about 230 pounds, and has a 6'11 wingspan. I've seen a lot of sites that state that he has a 7-foot wingspan. However, I don't think the eye test matches that, especially in a key aspect of his game that we will get into in a later part of the video. However, I understand that a lot of sites do state that he has a 7-foot wingspan. However, the eye test just, I don't feel that he has a 7-foot wingspan. Just watching a ton of film on him, I feel that it's right around the 6'10", 6'11 range. And it's not too much of a disparity to the point where it's going to cause, too much of a controversy. But I think a 6'11 wingspan is just about right for Sochan. And again, this is a very, very good physical profile for Jeremy, as, being very tall, has a good weight on him, carries the weight well, and also having a plus wingspan helps him out tremendously in different ways that we will get to on the court. However, moving on to his stats, this is his first year at Baylor. He is a freshman, where he is averaging 8.6 points, 6 rebounds, nearly 2 assists at 1.9, and 1.3 steals per game. Very solid stats. For the young forward, playing on a very stacked Baylor team that is looking to repeat as NCAA champions. However, regarding his percentages, he is shooting 58.1. He does have a 58.1 effective field goal percentage, which is very good overall. However, he is shooting 51% from the free throw line, which is absolutely atrocious, something that we will discuss later on in the video. He does, however, have a 37.8% three-point attempt rate, which essentially means that 37.8% of his shots are coming from behind the arc, which is very good. Again, I love to include three-point attempt rate for those of you that don't know, because it kind of gives us a glimpse into the player's shot profile, what kind of shots they're taking up. Shots are they putting up, excuse me. And also, I think free throw rate helps as well with this, as it kind of tells us, how many times is this player getting to the line, which kind of gives you a hint into, okay, if they're getting to the line this amount of times, what kind of shots are they taking, right? And Jeremy Sochan does have a free throw rate of 44.1%. So that essentially means for every one field goal, he's getting to the line 44.1% of those field goals. So that's pretty solid. That means for every one field goal, he's getting to the line almost half the time, which again is very good. So very good percentages in terms of his shot profile. However, that free throw percentage is extremely worrying, and something that we will discuss later on in the video. Moving on to the strengths of Jeremy Sochan as a prospect. As a lot of you guys know, I typically start off on the offensive side of the floor for my prospects when I'm discussing, their strengths. However, with Jeremy Sochan, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to start doing this where if a player entices me more on the defensive side of the floor, I'll start off discussing, their defensive strengths. And Jeremy Sochan is the first of this case, where, in my opinion, I believe him to be arguably the best off-ball communicator that I've covered so far. He's pretty much the defensive floor general for this Baylor team, in my opinion. The way he's just always communicating with everybody, nothing ever catches him off guard, whether, there's a floppy set going on, whether there's screens going on, whether it's on-ball, off-ball screens. He's always just communicating. He's always telling people where to go. So in that aspect, that's just like so impressive from an 18-year-old to see him navigate a defense like that. We're not talking about a mid-major D1 defense. We're talking about one of the 10, arguably one of the 5 best teams in all of college basketball. When you're talking about an 18-year-old freshman, being their anchor defensively, and that just speaks volumes about his awareness and his IQ on that end of the floor. And there's multiple times where he'll just see a play coming and he'll just blow it up. Whether that's he sees a down screen coming on his man, he'll tell his man to get out there, and if his man can't get out there, he has the length and size to be able to cover for his man and get out on the perimeter himself and cover for his teammates, which is just so impressive. And I really value this part of his skill set, and I expect it to translate to the NBA level. And it's really almost a safety net for him, because even if he does struggle, somewhat in other aspects on defense, you can always just count on him just being such an aware defender and an alert defender off ball, which again, as I just stated, will help him in the long run, as being, I always talk about how you always want to see players have one elite skill set that you're like, all right, this player will be able to do this very well at the NBA level. And I feel that off-ball defense is that. for Jeremy Sohan, whether that be as a strong side defender or even as a weak side defender. However, as I mentioned before, in terms of closing out onto the perimeter, I feel that that's one of the best things he does as well. I think he does a great job of closing out on shooters, and overall, he just makes a lot of players uncomfortable on the perimeter when he is acting as a point of attack defender. And one of the reasons because of that is just again how long he is. We covered his physical profile in the previous slide, which is great, and he uses that length well, and he does a great job of always staying disciplined as well. He always has his hands out. He doesn't foul a lot. He really rarely ever fouls. The only time he fouls is if he gets beat, really, which is extremely impressive. It doesn't matter what kind of guard he's guarding. He always has his hands out wide, and that's something that you love to see. And he also does a great job of staying upright at the rim as well. So on top of just being having such a high IQ, his awareness is great. He's always calling out plays, calling out switches, calling out screens, telling players where to go. He's also just very disciplined in terms of not fouling. He always has his hands out. He's always upright at the rim. I've never seen a Jeremy Sohan contest where his hands aren't upright. Whether that's again closing out on shooters or whether that's at the rim, he will go straight up upright with his hands up, regardless of whether it's a guard attacking the rim or whether it's a big man attacking the rim. And I do have some of my gripes with that as we'll get into later on in the video. However, you love to see such a young player be so polished and disciplined, with his IQ. And as I state in my second bullet, he also does a great job of picking off weak side passing lanes. Again, I talked about how that length helps him, and this is another one of the real areas on defense where his length does help him, as he just does a great job of picking off those passing lanes. If the pass is floated up and he's splitting the court in half, or he's three passes away, he'll pick that ball. He'll see that pass coming a mile away, and he will jump it before it even gets there. He'll look like a safety in the NFL, which is really what he reminds me of defensively. He's really like just a huge safety on defense. He's kind of a guy who can play in coverage, and he's a guy who can kind of play in man. That's what Jeremy Sohan really reminds me of. He's like that caliber of a defender, which is extremely impressive. And of course, there are some parts of his game that I expect to grow, and that some parts of his defensive game that leave room for improvement. However, again, seeing such poise and IQ and awareness from such a young player, you love to see it. However, moving on to the offense side of the floor, where his again, I will admit that his skill set is a lot more limited on the offensive side of the floor. However, he does have his strengths, and I think he does a great job of getting to the rim and just attacking the basket. And what I love about Jeremy Sohan is a lot of his attacks he'll come off a screen action. A lot of times it'll almost kind of be like a floppy set. And the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, well, why are they running a floppy set for Jeremy Sohan? But then he'll catch the ball off the last screen, and he'll be at the wing, and his momentum will be carrying him towards the top of the key, right? And he does such a great job of catching and ripping the opposite way. He kind of catches, waits a second, waits for the defender to kind of like come up and kind of hedge, get in front of his momentum, and he does just such a great job of ripping to the opposite direction, catching his man off balance and getting to the basket. And as I state, he's a very, very good right hand finisher. Can pretty much finish any way with his right hand, whether that be underhand layups, overhand layups, whether it be little teardrops. Even his floater isn't too bad. And as I also state, we've covered a couple prospects lately, mainly Ty Washington and Tari Eason, where they're just not left-hand players. And while Jeremy Sohan is definitely a right-handed player, that doesn't necessarily mean that his left hand is weak. He doesn't necessarily use his left hand all that much when scoring and when getting to the basket. However, whenever he does attack, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look all clunky. It's pretty solid, actually, and I think he should look to attack with his left hand a lot more. I've seen a number of underhand finishes where he does a great job of contorting his body, using his size and his pretty solid body control at getting to the rim pretty efficiently, which is very solid, very solid. Again, you love to see such a young player with such poise and such strength. And what I really, really love is just he loves, as I stated before, as we talked about a couple of seconds ago, with his ripping against his momentum. I love that. I just love that because it just shows how high of an IQ Sohan has. And again, the fact that he's 18, I only expect it to continue to grow. And he does that all the time. And he just, whether that's on the wing, it doesn't even necessarily have to be coming off, screens. He could just be, he's sitting in the corner waiting for a shot. He'll catch it, fake one way, and again he's just so big and so long that the defender will automatically think that he's going one way, and he just does such a great job of faking them out and going the other way, whether that's attacking baseline, attacking the middle of the court, wherever it is he is attacking. He just does such a great job of using his defenders his both his momentum and his defender's momentum, technically, because they're both moving the same. He just does a great he just excuse me does such a great job of manipulating that to get to where he wants, on the court. And moving on to a different aspect of his offensive game, his handle. His handle isn't great. It's not even necessarily good. I wouldn't even. I I'd say it's pretty average to I think it's right around where you expect a 6'9", 18 year old's handle to be. Not everybody can be Jabari Smith or Paulo Banquero, but his handle, it's not. You're never gonna pry away his handle. I've rarely ever seen any player pick Sohan's pocket because he does such a great job of whenever he is in trouble when he is handling the ball, he likes to put defenders on his back, which is very good. Again, you like to see that he recognizes, okay, let me not try something, too crazy. Let me just put them on my back, and I can kind of just see over a lot of defenders, because not a lot of guys are as tall or big as Sohan. So he's like, all right, let me just put them on my back so that I can just survey the court, which is something that you teach a lot of guards, especially at the college level, to put defenders on your back and kind of just use that to kind of just back them down, regardless if it's in the half court or even full court situations. That's something that I've seen, being taught to guard. So for Jeremy Sohan to be able to recognize that, again, that's very impressive to me. However, his go-to move, as I state, is his spin move from his left hand to his right hand. As I stated before, he doesn't really like to dribble all that much with his left hand, but the spin move to his right hand is automatic, and he pretty much beats his defenders all the time with it. He does a great job of, again, as I stated before, as we talked about before, manipulating his defenders' momentum, and he does a good job of doing that with the spin move, and just with just how overwhelmingly big Sohan is, right? He just gets to the basket. He can kind of just get to spots where he wants, and I like the fact that he does have one go-to move. However, I would like to see him expand his handle repertoire, just because I'm not sure how effective that spin move is going to be against much bigger competition that he's going to face. I don't know how effective that spin move is going to be against a player like Markieff Morris or Marcus Morris or Tobias Harris. So I would definitely like to see his handle improve. But again, it's still solid to see that he has at least one move that he goes to consistently with the ball in his hands. However, regarding his jump shot, his pull-up jumper from like right around 10 feet out, like right around in that mid-range area, not necessarily that teardrop area, but that area right outside of it is very good. And we'll talk more about his shot form later, but his length really helps him with his jump shot, just because it's hard to contest. Again, just because of how big he is, and with that plus wingspan that he does have. However, his touch is what's really impressive on these shots. His jump shot is just always so soft on these 10-foot jump shots, and he loves to get into them with that spin move. He likes to attack left, spin right, just rise up over defenders, and it doesn't matter whether there's a defender, right at his waist or not. He just gets these shots off, whether he goes straight up or whether he's kind of leaning right a little bit. He just has soft touch on these shots, and his handle and his form on these shots is really impressive, which is a bit surprising considering one of his major weaknesses is his form in another aspect, which we will get into in just a second. Moving on to some of the concerns I have regarding Jeremy Sohan. First up is just his lateral quickness as a point of attack defender. As I stated before, his length causes a lot of problems for ball handlers. However, the more shifty ball handlers just have their way with him. A player like Javon Quinterly will get Jeremy Sohan on an island and just make him look silly. It'll look like an and one mixtape. And one of the reasons why I think this is because his lateral quickness isn't there, but it takes him. What I noticed is that it takes him a second to react to quick changes of direction. What I mean by that is, if a player will hit him with a let's say like an exaggerated Allen Iverson cross, it'll take him a second. He'll kind of like pause, kind of like hop a little bit, and he'll kind of like put his arms out a little bit, like almost as if he kind of has to like establish himself, kind of like, okay, let me stop, let me get myself adjusted, then let me react to the ball handler. And I don't know how much of a problem that's going to be at the NBA level, just because, you know, even if you're not a good defender, once you're at like that 6'8", 6'9" height, it's just hard to, continuously take advantage of that players of that height. So I expect it to be a problem with Jeremy Sohan, maybe at the beginning stage of his career. But again, you have to keep in mind he's 18 years old. He's a freshman in college. I expect him to develop as a point of attack defender as time goes on. However, that the fact that he does have to adjust and he needs a second to adjust to changes of direction is a bit concerning as a point of attack defender. However, moving on to another part of his defense that does concern me is just his rim protection overall. And I've just come to the conclusion that he's not all that much of a vertical athlete. Just when you watch him, he just is always upright, especially at the rim, where a lot of people are always like, "Oh, he has 7 wingspan, 7 foot wingspan, 7 foot wingspan." I'm like, where? If he had a 7 foot wings, Jeremy Sohan is pretty much non-existent as a rim protector. He puts his hands up, but he struggles. He just does. He just never tries to actually block the shot. And I'm just like, if you're 6'9" with a 7 foot wingspan, there's no way Keon Ellis should just be able to hit a reverse layup on you, and all you're doing is just putting your hands up, and you're like, there's no way like you have any chance of like even getting to the shot. Like I just feel that his verticality isn't necessarily all there. And that combined with the fact that he is always upright, that he is just such a disciplined defender, just takes away from him being a rim protector. You see a lot of the best rim protectors, they go after the ball, right? They're upright a lot of the times, but a player like Rudy Gobert is going to go for the ball when he has to. And I've never seen Jeremy Sohan do that, and that often leads to him. He gets dunked on a couple times. I remember against Iowa State. He got posterized a couple times, once I believe, just because he's just upright. Like he doesn't necessarily try to contest the shot, and I don't think his verticality is all that great for it to allow him to be upright. Like if he was if he had an impressive vertical, then I don't think him being upright would necessarily be a problem because he could just jump up and keep his hands up, and that would be enough to contest the shot. But because it's not, it's just he doesn't really offer all that much resistance around the rim. So while again he is a great help defender, he's an awesome help defender, awesome floor general overall, plays passing lanes great. It's just with the lateral quickness on ball, that does concern me a bit, and just his verticality leading to him being a bit of an ineffective rim protector, which I also feel like can lead to a bit of which I feel like can lead to him being a little bit worse of a defender in terms of closing out onto shooters at the NBA level, just because he's going to be having to close out on guys like a Kelly Olynyk, for example. Kelly Olynyk's 6'11", 6'10". Jeremy Sohan doesn't have that much of a vertical athlete, and staying upright is great, but sometimes you're just gonna have to jump a little bit and try to really contest the shot. And I just don't know if Jeremy Sohan's going to be able to do that against some of the taller players that he is going to be matched up. Because at the end of the day, even though he is 6'9", even though he does have a bit of handle, Jeremy Sohan's going to be a power forward at the NBA level. So that is something that I do definitely want to keep in mind and monitor with him as he translates to the next level next year. Moving on to the offensive side of the floor, where the major concerns are. And I think the biggest concern has to be his free throw form. As I mentioned before, he is shooting 51% from the free throw line, which is absolutely atrocious. And the free throw form is absolutely the first time I saw it, I kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, it was absolutely awful in just about every way. The elevation on his release is absolutely inconsistent. There's times where it's fine, and there's times where it's just really bad, where it's just way below his ear. That's not a good sign, right? A player like Ty Washington that, I mentioned before in the video, I mentioned how in Ty's video, I don't love his form, but everything about his shot is just consistent all the time. So I think it's going to be easier to maybe fine tune some of the mechanical issues in his shot. However, that's just not the case with Jeremy Sohan. The elevation is all over the place. It's just not consistent. And all more times than not, however, it is low than it is high. The touch isn't necessarily there on his free throws either. And the big part about his jump shot overall, and I'll talk about his 3-point shot in just a second, but it's his shooting hand. He doesn't flick his wrist. Usually on a jump shot, you like to see them, actually flick their wrist. With Jeremy Sohan, he just flicks his fingers, and it's like that's just it's not pleasant. It's not smooth. It's not good to watch. And I just don't know how successful that's going to be able. I don't know how successful he's going to be with just trying to flick his fingertips. His fingers. You don't teach that. There's very few shooters out there that I've ever seen shoot like that. Never mind being successful at the NBA level. Shooting like that. So I feel like whoever his trainer is gonna have to step on that right away. That's going to be day one. If I was his trainer, that's day one what we fix. You're no more flicking of your fingers. You're going to be flicking your hand. You're going to be flicking your wrist every time on your jump shot. And it's definitely concerning. But again, you have to keep in mind that he is 18 years old, so he's extremely young. But that jump shot is just extremely concerning from the free throw line, and that it's not like he has like some soft touch on it. It's not like, okay, well, it works here. It's like, no, it's like even when it goes in, you're just like, ugh, like you cringe. You're just like, ugh, like that does not look good. And this also plays into his 3 point shot as well, where I think the elevation is a bit better compared to his free throw form. I think it's a little bit more higher. However, the flicking of the wrist, like, it just has to happen, because it would just help the arc on his shot do wonders. Because if he's just shooting like this, think about it. If all you had to do is go like this, right, as opposed to just flicking your wrist naturally carries your shooting motion up higher. So I feel like that would automatically help with his elevation of his jump shot, which is a problem that he also has with his shot, right? So I feel like just fixing his flicking of his fingers, flicking of the wrist, would help out wonders for his shot, and would help a lot in terms of his NBA upside, and how ready he's going to be to contribute to a basketball team from day one at the NBA level. However, moving on from his jump shot, something that we did mention before is just his handle. As I mentioned before, it is kind of hard to pry away, but he still needs to develop, working on different counter moves to the way different defenders play him. And I feel like he will get better at that as time goes on. I feel like he's much more comfortable, dribbling the ball than he is shooting the ball. However, Jeremy Sochan, very impressive prospect overall. In my opinion, he's worlds better than Kendall Brown, who is Baylor's other prospect. I view Jeremy Sochan as a he's right around 14, 15 on my board. I expect him to be, a late lottery pick. I would love him to go to a team like the Thunder, a big athlete that could slide in at the floor and develop, next to all their young players as time goes on. And just to talk about, his strengths, really quick overview, awesome help defender, arguably the best in the class, arguably the best defensive communicator in the class. Does a great job, recognizing plays, blowing them up. Great awareness and IQ overall. Does a great job of attacking against this momentum on the offensive side of the floor. Plays passing lanes great. And is a very solid finisher with his right hand and his left hand overall. Very solid touch also on his mid-range teardrops. His automatic go-to move is his left hand spin move to his right, where he loves to pull up, and that shot is essentially automatic, which is very promising moving forward. However, some of his concerns are that his lateral quickness isn't there in terms of being a point of attack defender. He does always need a second to adjust to changes of direction, which leads him, which means that he is liable to be beat and made look silly by shifty ball handlers. An example that I mentioned would be Javon Quinterly. Also, his verticality isn't also all the way there, which, even though he is upright and very disciplined as a defender in terms of fouling, he doesn't necessarily go for contesting shots necessarily, just like stay upright, which does lead to him not offering much resistance around the rim. And also, just his form is absolutely awful. He needs to work on his elevation of his guide hand. Also, along with the shooting end as well. However, the big thing with his form is just that he flicks his fingers, not his wrists, which I feel like would help out a lot. And that also relates to his 3-point shot, which definitely does need work as well. However, the release is a bit better with his 3-point shot, and also just working on his handle, continuing to develop counter moves. Overall, very raw prospect. However, Jeremy Sochan is very raw in certain areas, but very advanced in other areas. And again, just given his age and his IQ and his awareness, so young, at such a young age, I would expect Jeremy Sochan to be a late lottery pick in this upcoming draft. And that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Jeremy Sochan. Do you guys think he is a top 10 pick, a lottery pick? Maybe you guys think that, some of his concerns are a bit too much. Maybe some of you guys view him as a end of the first round, maybe even second round pick. Let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know what you guys think about Jeremy Sochan in the comments. And aside from that, that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Have a blessed day, and peace.